first session, for the first lecture series, we have with us, I prefer to call you Meg, but it's up to you whether how you name yourself here. I'm sure that you have already seen the leaflet that I distribute to several places here in this campus, and she will deliver a topic on the relationship between AIDS and human rights. I don't know what kind of association between the two, yeah, but well, I know, but it's up to you whether you want to explore the other way. So I hope that this 1 hour sessions will be very much benefit to all of you, especially because you attend our course, the Kejahatan Narkotika. I hope that having listened to Dr. Mac, then you will prepare a report. A report not only consists of your material, your writing material, but also including what actually stated by Dr. She will speak for about 20 minutes, and then we continue with question and answer sessions. So I also hope that you also contribute, you also ask something, or you criticize something. It's up to you, yeah, to the speaker. Okay, please.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I want to thank Professor Adrianas for the invitation to speak here, and for I tend to have a very informal style, so I want to encourage you, if something I don't understand, or something you have a question about, or something that you have a comment about health and human rights. And to begin with, I want to just get a sense from you of how you think about human rights. So how would you define human rights? What does it mean? All right, so I think I'll start with this young lady all the way in the back. So how would you define human rights?
Me?
Yeah.
Rights that everyone is entitled to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to add anything to that? No? All right. So yes, it's rights that each human being has, regardless of race or gender or income or where you're born or when you're born, age, anything. Basic human rights are rights that every single human being has. And the concept of human rights officially begins after World War II with the creation of something called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations. So many countries came together, countries in the West, countries in the East, Africa, every region of the world was really represented at this discussion about what these basic human rights were going to be. And they created this document, which was the first human rights law, the Universal Declaration, or the UDHR. And it includes such rights as the right to free expression, the right to freedom of religion, freedom from torture, and many other sort of the basic human rights. Yes, please come forward. So there's a chair over here as well. A chair here. So the idea of human rights is that these are responsibilities that governments have to uphold. Governments have the job of protecting human rights and ensuring that they're not violated. So if Professor Meliala, which I'm sure you would never do, came up and hit me in the nose, this would not be a human rights violation, right? This would mean that bad things never happen. But it does mean that the state is taking some efforts to prevent them from happening, and that if I'm beaten by a police officer, I have a place where I can go to file a complaint, where I can take the police officer to court, so I have some hope of getting justice under that system that respects human rights. It doesn't mean that police abuse won't happen. It just means that I have some access to justice. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So beginning in the 1940s, after the creation of the UDHR, governments began to sign treaties to promote and uphold human rights. And there are two that are the really big treaties that those of us who work in human rights talk about. And one is called the ICCPR, which is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So you can see it. Covenant is like an agreement or a treaty, right? Civil and political rights means the most fundamental human rights are the first ones that were conceived of as being political rights. So that includes the right to free expression, the right to vote in your government. I'm sorry? Self-determination, exactly, right. That's number one in the ICCPR. The right to redress through the court system, the right to be free from torture. So this covenant was the earlier one, and it outlined these basic rights. A little bit later on, the second covenant came into being, the ICESCR, really long names. So this one is the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So that law protects your right to water, your right to not be forcibly evicted from your home, your right to health. So rights that have to do with your economic and social well-being. So the first one, civil and political rights, and the second one is economic and social. I don't really know why they put cultural in there, because there's nothing that protects cultural rights in the ICESCR. But it does uphold some basic economic and social rights. And what happens is that governments sign these laws. They then go through a process of creating new laws in their system that bring them into agreement, bring them into compliance with these treaties, and then they ratify the treaty, which means that they pass it through the legal system of their own country. And at that point, that treaty has the force of law in that country. Okay? So countries around the world have, some of them have ratified the ICCPR, some have ratified the ICESCR. I think Indonesia has ratified both, I'm not sure if anyone else here knows. My country has ratified ICCPR but not ICESCR, because there's a debate within my country that people don't want to agree that people have a right to health because we have a terrible healthcare system. So if they agree to that, they'd have to change the healthcare system, right? People's Republic of China, where I do a lot of work, has ratified ICESCR, but is reluctant to pass the ICCPR because that gives people the right to vote, right? And the right to freedom of expression, which in China they have mixed feelings about. So different countries have different positions in relation to these laws. But violations of those rights are violations of international law. So that's part of why these treaties were created, because it makes countries hold to the same standard, regardless of culture, regardless of social situation, regardless of economics. They're all expected to uphold a standard to the right to health. And this is a bit tricky, because obviously there's no way that international law can make you healthy, right? Someone in Jakarta can go to a hospital and get a certain kind of treatment. Someone in Papua should be able to get the same treatment at a hospital. So that shouldn't be different from one region to another. Everyone should have the right to that same standard. Certain human rights abuses lead to health problems. So if you're beaten by a police officer, you're going to have health problems, right? I mean, that's fairly clear. You don't have to fly someone in from New York to tell you that, right? So that's very clear. But the other concept is that epidemics, that health problems are worse in situations...
Use your Obama style.
My Obama style. I can only aspire to speak like Obama. He's very popular in Indonesia.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe, if it doesn't work out in the US, he could come here. About something called the gay plague, which is how AIDS was first referred to. It was seen as being a disease that affected homosexual men, because the first few cases were homosexual men.